We begin this session with a very important question. Can a conviction be based upon the uncorroborated testimony of an accomplice? It will be our endeavor to find a legal answer to this question. First of all, we'll see what is the meaning of the word accomplice. It means a partner in crime. The question can be rephrased. If he becomes an approver, if an accomplice becomes an approver, can his uncorroborated testimony be made a basis for conviction of his other partners in crime? Uncorroborated testimony means unsupported testimony. Testimony means evidence in the court of law. Approver means he comes to the court and admits his crime by giving evidence before the court. So the question is, if an accomplice becomes an approver and he gives evidence before the court about the crime and his partners in crime, can this testimony given by the approver be made a basis for conviction of his other partners without there being any supporting evidence? To find out answer to this question, we will first of all go to section 133. And there is a clear answer in this section. The section says that an accomplice shall be a competent witness against an accused person. And it is further declared that a conviction is not illegal merely because it proceeds upon the uncorroborated testimony of an accomplice. This section enables a court to base a conviction on an uncorroborated testimony of an accomplice based on the sole testimony of an accomplice. If a court bases the conviction on sole testimony of an accomplice, that conviction will not be illegal merely for that reason. And it also lays down that the accomplice is a competent witness. But there is a contradictory provision in the Evidence Act itself, and that provision is in section 114 clause B. This provision is as under: court may presume that an accomplice is unworthy of credit unless he is corroborated in material particulars. This section requires that the evidence of an accomplice should be corroborated in material particulars, should be supported by other evidence. If there is no supporting evidence, then the evidence of the accomplice is unworthy of credit. So what is the contradiction? Whereas section 133 declares an accomplice a competent witness, section 114B characterizes him as unworthy of credit unless he is corroborated in material particulars. The two sections are contradictory, and the question is how to resolve this contradiction. Fortunately for us, this contradiction was resolved long back by the Privy Council in the year 1949, and the resolution was as follows. We are now seeing the law in India relating to the evidence of accomplices. There are two important rules relating to the evidence of accomplices. Both these rules were laid down by the Privy Council in 1949. This is the first rule. Whilst it is not illegal to act upon the uncorroborated evidence of an accomplice, it is not illegal. because section 133 says so. So while it is not illegal to act upon the uncorroborated evidence of an accomplice, yet it is a rule of prudence so universally followed as to amount almost to a rule of law that it is unsafe to act upon the evidence of an accomplice unless it is corroborated in material respects so as to implicate the accused. Section 133 enables a court to base the conviction on the uncorroborated evidence of an accomplice. However, there is a rule of prudence and which has now firmed up into a rule of law. And what is this rule of law? That it is unsafe to act upon the evidence of an accomplice unless it is corroborated, especially as regards the implication of an accused in the crime. The rule of prudence, which has now firmed up into a rule of law, may be said to be based upon the interpretation placed by courts on the phrase corroborated in material particulars in illustration B to section 114. This is the basis for this rule of prudence. What is the second rule? This rule says the evidence of one accomplice cannot be used to corroborate the evidence of another accomplice. Rule 1 says that there should be corroboration of the evidence of one accomplice. So, there was an argument from the side of the prosecution that okay, this is the evidence of one accomplice. There is similar evidence from another accomplice, and therefore the second evidence should be held to corroborate the evidence of the first accomplice. The Privy Council said no, the evidence of one accomplice cannot be used to corroborate the evidence of another accomplice. So this is also an important rule to be kept in mind. Both these rules were laid down by the Privy Council in the very famous case of Bhuboni Sahu versus the King, rendered in 1949. Bhuboni Sahu versus the King. We shall briefly see the facts of this case. There was a murder which took place in October 1946. Conviction under section 302 read with 34 and sentence of death by the Court of Sessions Judge of Ganjam, Puri in Odisha was made in July 1947. The death sentence was confirmed by the High Court of Judicature at Patna in September 1947. July, August, September, within 2 months. The murder takes place in 1946. Conviction comes in July 1947 within a few months, and confirmation by the High Court comes within just 2 months, and thereafter the Privy Council judgment also comes in 1949. This timeline is an eye-opener. There used to be a time in India when justice could be so fast, so swift. In this judgment, there was an argument, in this case there was an argument from the side of the prosecution that if a corroboration is required, corroboration of what? Corroboration of the evidence of the approver. Since the rule of law says that there has to be a corroboration of the evidence of the approver, then the prosecution advanced the statement of the approver recorded under section 164 as a corroborating evidence. So this question was to be decided by the Privy Council whether this statement of the approver recorded under section 164 by a magistrate could be used as a corroborating evidence in support of the evidence of the accomplice. And this is what the council says. The statement made by the approver under section 164 does not amount to the corroboration in material particulars which the court requires in relation to the evidence of an accomplice. And See the reason which was given. An accomplice cannot corroborate himself. Tainted evidence does not lose its taint by repetition. The same person, if he is repeating his evidence at different places, the taint of that evidence coming from an accomplice does not go away. So the rule is an accomplice cannot corroborate himself. We had earlier seen another rule that one accomplice cannot corroborate another accomplice. And this rule says an accomplice cannot corroborate himself. So this is an important point to be noted. In this case, the Privy Council gave a very lucid argument as to why the uncorroborated evidence of an accomplice should not be accepted by courts. The Privy Council said the danger of acting upon an accomplice evidence is not merely that the accomplice on his own admission is a man of bad character who took part in the offense and afterwards to save himself betrayed his former associates. That of course is one reason that the accomplice on his own admission is a man of bad character. Why? Because first of all he committed the crime and thereafter to save himself he betrayed his former associates. He is now giving evidence against his own partners. So this is already there and everyone admits this fact that an accomplice is a man of bad character. But that is not the only danger in accepting his evidence. The greater danger is what comes now. The real danger, in the words of the Privy Council, is that he is telling a story which in its general outline is true and it is easy for him to work into this story matter which is untrue. Since he knows the entire story, now what he can do is that most of the story he will narrate truthfully, but here and there he will introduce certain untruths, and that untruth is very difficult to be detected. He may implicate 10 people in an offense and the story may be true in all its details as to 8 of them, but it may be untrue as to the other 2, whose names he may introduce because they are his enemies. So the approver can very cleverly introduce names of his own enemies as partners in the crime even though they were not at all there. And it will be difficult for the court to find out as to in which portion of the evidence there lies the untruth. And then the court concluded that the only real safeguard against the risk of condemning the innocent with the guilty lies in insisting upon independent evidence which in some measure implicates each accused. So the point to be emphasized is that there should be independent evidence which implicates each accused. As far as the implication of the accused is concerned, there must be independent evidence, independent from the evidence given by the accomplice. We'll now see another case decided by the Supreme Court, Harun Haji Abdullah versus State of Maharashtra, where also the law relating to accomplice evidence was laid down. The case against Harun stands mainly on the basis of the statement of accomplice Kashinath. Harun is the accused, Kashinath is the approver. He also took part in the crime, and most of the evidence against Harun is coming from the accomplice Kashinath. To corroborate Kashinath, the magistrate and the High Court have looked into his statement under section 171A of the Sea Customs Act. It was a case of smuggling, and the statement of Kashinath was recorded under section 171A of the Sea Customs Act. and thereafter he became approver and he gave evidence in the court also. So the evidence given by Kasinath in the court was sought to be corroborated by his earlier statement recorded under section 171 of the Sea Customs Act. The Supreme Court said no, that cannot be done because the use of the previous statement of an accomplice is to make the accomplice corroborate himself. And we already saw in that Privy Council judgment that an accomplice cannot corroborate himself. Therefore, the previous statement of the same accomplice cannot be made to corroborate his evidence in the court. The Supreme Court further observed that an accomplice who betrays his associates is not a fair witness, and it is possible that he may, to please the prosecution, weave false details into those which are true, and his whole story appearing true, there may be no means at hand to sever the false from that which is true. It is for this reason that courts, before they act on accomplice evidence, insist on corroboration in material respect as to the offence itself and also implicating in some satisfactory way, however small, each accused named by the accomplice.